Was there one smoking gun witness who could have pinned OJ Simpson at the site of the murders at the time they occurred? You're about to find out. 1 Degree of Scandalous with Tom Zenner and Cato Kalin. We have the guest who saw him the night of the murders, Jill Shively. Jill, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Jill, let's go back to June 12th, 1994, a day that's, I'm sure, emblazoned in your mind and something you've relived so many times over the years. Talk to us first about where you were going at that time at night. After 9, before 10 o'clock, what were you doing?
Well, I was leaving my home to get to Westward Ho Market. It's on San Vicente, right past Bundy. And I knew I had to be there before 11. So I was speeding up San Vicente to get there to beat that 11 o'clock deadline.
Right, in your Volkswagen Beetle, right? That's what you had, a Beetle?
Volkswagen Bug.
Little Bug, okay.
Little Bug.
Same thing?
Yeah.
It's same species?
It's an insect, though.
All right, so you're driving, not a big car. You're heading down that road. It's dark, it's night. Although, you know, at that time of the summer, it stays light pretty late. What did you see next?
As I approached Bundy, I was heading east on San Vicente. As I'm approaching Bundy, I'm driving pretty fast, faster than the speed limit because I want to get there. And all of a sudden I see this white flash come towards me. No lights on. It was a car, no lights on. And I remember seeing the rims, shining rims from the street light. There was a street light there. And it flashed the rims. And I remember seeing that. And that was the only thing that alerted me that that car was there.
And Cato, this would have been what? Less than an hour after you had seen OJ?
Yeah, and I think that it's fascinating, by the way, because it's a timeline. Everything's timeline of when my time is at match, with Jill's timeline of everything that's going on. And what Jill is talking about is there's this, if I remember, Westward Ho, there's a unusual stoplight that you have to come up this way, another stoplight going that way. And I think OJ coming up that way would have to have made a left turn, or coming towards that area.
Right.
But the important thing is that he almost ran into you, right? I'll let you continue.
I didn't see him. I didn't see him because there was no lights on the car. So only reason I saw him and didn't collide with him is because I saw those rims. They were shiny. Mm-hmm. And that alerted me. And then I remember swerving to my right, and there was like a school there. So there's a fence and a church or a school there. And then he was catacornered. He stopped, kind of swerved to miss me because he didn't see me either. So then he stopped right there in the intersection, blocking all of us.
Right. So that had to be horrifying. You're in this small car. This SUV is coming at you with no lights on. Correct. So what was the first thing that crossed your mind? Did you make any visual contact with the person that was driving?
Well, the first thing in my mind was, I thought, what a jerk, I have a small bug. I'm a single parent. He could have taken me out, right? So I was thinking, my friend who was a police officer said, usually people who are driving drunk forget to turn the lights on. So I was thinking, oh, darn, it's a darn drunk driver, What the heck is he doing here? So then I look to my left at this person, and I recognize it as a football player first. I'm like, okay, it looks familiar, football player, thinking. Originally, I thought it was, I think, Al Cowlings first, and then
Marcus Allen?
Marcus Allen. I was trying to go through my brain. And then he's glaring at me, and I'm looking at him. And it's just like, he's looking at me like, I remember him looking at me like, like I had done something to him.
Right, it's your fault driving.
Yeah, it's my fault. So I remember looking at him back and thinking, I was just in shock because it all happened so fast. And then he yelled at another driver to move out of the way. Move, move. And then I recognized his voice because I had just seen the Naked Gun current movie out, like a Naked Gun 33 and a quarter, third or something. 33. And I'm like, okay, that's him. I was like pissed off. And then he had an attitude, and I think they backed up. They were trying to move out of each other's way. Like, I remember it being like 3 times.
So I want to make sure I get this straight. So he's yelling at someone, and so that means his window is down. You actually hear the voice?
His window was down. I remember window down, short sleeve.
And he's got a very recognizable voice, OJ Simpson. He's a professional broadcaster. Mm-hmm. The Hertz commercials, everybody knew that voice. Did that trigger right then that this is OJ Simpson, who's usually, up until that moment or 20 minutes ago, one of the most likable, charismatic people on the planet. Everybody recognized that voice, but he sounded agitated and pissed off, like he was heading out and needed to leave the scene quickly.
He was in a hurry. He says, "Move, move." He was just saying, "Move." And I recognized his voice. I mean, everyone knew him from the village there. I mean, handsome guy, you know, actor. I knew him more as an actor than an athlete. So everyone knew him. And then when I heard his voice, it just triggered, like, wait, that's the guy. And then I realized it was OJ.
Yeah. So you went from thinking first Marcus with the first shot, then you heard the voice, it became OJ for you.
Correct.
And you're still ticked off because, heck, you could have been injured, seriously. Something bad could have happened to you. So you're processing all that in your mind.
Right.
And then there's a little chaos on the street, and he's trying to get everybody moved so he can get out of there, right? So, you know, it just had to be one of those split-second things where it maybe freezes time for you.
It does.
So what did you do next? Did you try to get something to identify who that was?
Well, what happened was I remembered who it was. I was going to report him as a drunk driver. So I was able to see the license plate as he pulled around. And so I wrote down, I had a little notepad or something I wrote in my car. And then I tried to remember it because I couldn't get all the numbers correct. I had transposed the first three, but I remember the 788, 3CWZ 788. So I remembered in my head. So the time I got home, I wrote it down. I wasn't sure about the first, the 3CWZ or CZW, but I had the 788. So I had that. And I was going to report him as a drunk driver because I'm like, who in the heck would be driving like that? I mean, what would, you know, unless she's committed a robbery, never in my mind would I would think it's a murder. I think it's a drunk driver.
You know, Tom, something that just is amazing that his lights are off. First of all, if he's coming back from that scene of the crime, that is either a big gaffe by him because that would be, if a cop saw him, he would have been pulled over if he was seen.
Sure, or if there were cameras on the streets like there are now,
Right.
it would have been easily identifiable. And we had Tom Lang on the show last week. If you haven't seen that one, go back and watch that one. He said that when they took the Bronco apart, that OJ had taken the light from the roof, you know, the dome, like, you know, on the top, right? And so not only did he not have his headlights on, he didn't have that. So it had to be pretty creepy, this white vehicle. But other than that, it's completely dark. Now, Cato, what is the distance from the murder scene at Bundy to Rockingham, where you live in? Because clearly that's where he was headed back.
Yeah, I would say driving-wise, you could probably do it in 2.5 minutes. And I think that was part of the detectives. Everybody would ride their car and see what it was like. I actually had friends that would be coming visiting to Milwaukee, and a lot of other people, and I was doing radio at the time. People would do that drive and time it because a lot of times people were thinking, oh, it's impossible. But if you make the lights and everything, you can do it really quickly.
Yeah, I
Or
bet
if you run
thousands.
the lights, no.
Yeah, and I'm sure
ran the
thousands
lights,
and thousands of people, because they go to all the scenes of the big crimes in
Right,
L.A.
no.
And probably for 25 years, people were still trying. The Rockingham house is no longer there. That's been razed. The restaurant's gone, and the condo complex where Nicole lived is also no longer there. It's interesting because you would think if he's leaving the murder scene that he would want to do everything he possibly could to not bring attention to himself. So the headlights, right? He clearly wasn't thinking. It was probably just, I mean, we know what the crime scene looked like. He was probably so frantic to get out of there, he wasn't thinking straight.
Correct. And also you bring out the car was inside completely dark. I guess it would have only been bright if he had opened the door. So, but everything was completely dark.
Yeah.
And the only reason I recognized him is because he kind of stuck his head out and his hand motioned the guy to move.
And so is the car, is it on a median? Is it like over the island of the street, or is it on the street?
It's on the street, but his left front wheel went up on the median and then backed around, and then he ended up going around the guy. That's how I was able to get the license plate.
Well,
There was a gray Nissan trying to get through there, and he stopped.
You know, and folks, as you're watching this and you realize, you know, how articulate and believable, incredible Jill is, and her memory is unbelievable. And we're going to get into a lot in this podcast. We're going to talk about what happened next, why she didn't testify in the trial. If you don't know the story, it's unbelievable. And then her interactions with Marcia Clark, and then just what your life has been like the last 30 years. Did you make it to Westward Ho? Did you continue, and did you go to where you wanted to go?
I did go to Westward Ho, and the salad bar was closed down. They were closing it down. So by the time I got there, and so I'd had the flu, so I think I got some yogurt, and then I went back home.
Cato, did you hear anything, or could you have heard anything if the Bronco pulls in? I know the bungalow's in the back. Could you have heard screeching or anything?
No, not at all. It's and I think if I remember, going back 30 years, so I remember that Bronco was not parked it was parked on the street, and it was parked very badly. It was not, parallel to the curb, and he didn't go into the driveway, which made him, which I think, hindsight, it's because the limo driver was there. And if the limo driver's there, he can't be seen because he's telling the police he's in the house the whole time. And that would cause him, this is just I've been thinking about it because we do these shows, and I keep going, it would have made sense for him that the Bronco had to be not seen. That would have to have made him have to sneak around somehow. And that sneaking around, speculating, he had to jump over that fence of the neighbor, hitting the air conditioner, the drop glove.
As you're talking to your friend in the valley.
Exactly.
And you thought there was an earthquake.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, this is because of our shows that I've been thinking, I'm going back 30 years, but everything kind of makes sense. That's what have happened. I think Tom Lang said the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
they're able to recreate that perfectly, so they knew.
And like we said to Tom, I think Jill could have been the most valuable witness of being with the timeline of seeing coming back from that area.
Yeah, and we're going to find out why she didn't testify here in just a second. But, we all watch the crime shows on TV. It's the most popular genre right now. And, there's so many things that murderers do, felons do that, make it easy to solve. And he probably did a series of 25 things that should have been made it easy to solve just in that little time frame from when he almost hit you to when he got back to when he got in the limo, got to the airport, et cetera, et cetera. And it's unbelievable that, he was able to be not convicted in this. Okay, so Jill, you mentioned that you thought he was you thought he was drunk. So did you think you were reporting OJ Simpson as a drunk driver?
Correct. I called in before midnight that night, reported him as a drunk driver. And the lady said, well, was there an accident? I said, no. I remember the number. I was like 370, I think it was 475, but it was West LA Police Department. Says, well, I can take an accident report. I said, well, it was not an accident. I'm reporting him as a drunk driver. So she says, well, take your number, take your information, but I don't think she did like a full report, but the call was recorded.
Yep. That's called an incident report, I think, where they assign it a number, so it's at least recorded, right? But it's not an actual accident report where they had to come down and talk to you in person.
Right.
But at least you could reference that as an incident report.
Because I gave the lady his name and the license plate. I said, here's what I think it is. I might have transposed the first the letters, but here's the license plate. So, okay, I'll take everything down. We'll get back to you. And so I said, okay. So then the next morning, I talked to my mom. She says, oh, did you hear what happened with OJ's ex-wife and Ron Goldman? I said, no, what happened? And I told her what I went through.
Right.
She says, you better call back. But I think I called back before 6 or 7 that morning, and then I had the police calling me and coming out that same day.
Now, are the police calling you because of your report? They heard the recording, or are the police calling you because you contacted them?
I called them early before they hit night shift, so I was imagining that it could have been both, that they were calling me because I called them, but then they kind of put 2 and 2 together. So then they started calling me and coming out.
Well, I would think, Tom, the police are kind of foaming at the mouth like, you got to be kidding me.
I know.
We've got this person who sees possibly someone coming from the scene of the crime.
Yeah. Jill, did you tell the police or the dispatch when you made the phone call about midnight, when you reported the drunken driver, did you say OJ Simpson was driving drunk? Did you use the name?
I did. I told him it was OJ Simpson, and he was drunk. I said, I believe he was drunk, and I explained the whole thing. Driving with his lights off, almost hit me, very self-entitled. I went through the whole thing. I was really pissed off. And then they said, okay, we'll take this down. They took my number at the time, and they said they'd be in contact if someone would contact me if needed. But the lady, when I mentioned OJ, she's like, well, he didn't hit anyone, did he? He didn't hit you, did he? So it's kind of defending. I felt like she was defending him.
At the moment, right? Because, look, this is L.A. There's so many things that happen,
right?
Every second, right? There's car accidents, there's home invasions, there's everything going on. So if there wasn't a collision, I can understand maybe how the dispatch didn't make too big of a deal about it. But don't you think, Cato, the next day, it's all hands on deck, it's chaos at, Parker Center and everywhere else. And then maybe that dispatcher thought, hey, I took a report from somebody last night that said OJ Simpson driving drunk.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking of, having that in the report that you made, that is, the police coming to. So the police called you, or you met with them immediately?
I remember they called me that day, so that would have been Monday, the 13th.
Yep.
And I think they came out the next day, the 14th.
Okay.
There was Paul Tippin and Brian Carr. Do you remember them?
The names I do.
Yeah.
I did definitely remember Brian.
Yeah, Brian Carr came out with Paul Tippin. They came out a couple times.
By the way, if there's any crime scene junkies that want to find the Westward Ho right now, you're not. It's a Whole Foods.
Oh.
So that's what it is now. By the way, you mentioned the detective that came out and saw you on Tuesday the 14th. His name is Brian Carr. I have his card. Jill brought this in today. This is fascinating. I'm kind of getting chills just holding this because you can see that Brian Carr, detective at the time in Robbery Homicide Division of LAPD, wrote the license plate number on here. And we'll show this on screen, but wow. I'm literally getting chills just looking at that to think that was written down 2 days later. Valuable piece of evidence
this
right there.
This is a 30-year-old card.
I just found that card recently too. I was like, wow, it got me chills too. I'm thinking back to that moment, and it's
Well, I want to hear what happened. So you're telling them. So you're meeting with Brian and Paul Tippin, correct?
correct.
All right. So tell us the process of what they did, because they're trying to find out if you're credible.
Correct. They did. And so the 14th is I remember when they met with me, came to my home. They seemed very nervous. They came to my home talking to me, and first thing they said to me was, we did a background check on you. You don't even have a parking ticket. We have to do that. Everybody witness. We have to do that ahead of time.
Right.
I'm like, okay, and so they asked me to tell my story and where I was, what happened. I think they even spoke to my mom, and they were interviewing us, and they said, we want you to, we want to make sure that you. I think they so make sure you protect yourself, and we want to make sure that you don't feel afraid to speak out. So that was their first concern.
Other than someone being on the scene and seeing the murders happen, a real witness right there, you're as close as you can get. The timeline matches. How far from the Bundy condo did this altercation on the street happen?
A long block there, so maybe 2 blocks away.
Yeah.
It's 2 blocks
The
away.
murders were less than 5 minutes ago,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah, it's like 875, and this is right at the nearest biggest intersection. There's Montana, and then there's San Vicente.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Did you get a sense right then when you were talking to the detectives on the 14th that your life was going to be different as you knew it for eternity?
No, but it was really weird when they said to me, "We're going to protect you. Don't worry." And I'm thinking, from what? So
Right.
that was kind of a weird thing. And then they gave me a subpoena.
Yeah. Kato, did you feel right away that your life was forever going to be changed?
Yeah, I think I did, because I realized with all the media, and it was a circus, that it could only, it was just going to be broadcast everywhere. And any scene of walking out, I got out of the house, like I said, pretty much immediately. And you'll see in the clips that you had put that there's scenes of me walking around the house, and that's the days after.
Yeah.
And so that was like probably the last time I was ever on the Rockingham estate, was the clips that we just used.
That's a good
on our show, the 1 degree of scandalous. So this is really fascinating, Tom, because you mentioned you're only blocks away, that you got a subpoena. So obviously through your subpoena, you're going to be probably a prosecution witness. And from that time, the Tuesday was the 14th, I believe. 13th was the Monday. What time are you now meeting with Marcia Clark?
Probably the next day, the 15th or 16th.
Okay.
It all happened pretty fast.
But she hadn't been assigned the case yet. So, right?
Correct. I met with David Kahn
Yeah,
first. You remember David
yeah,
Kahn?
yeah.
I met with David, and David was the main guy at the time. He was going to try it at the time.
Did the detectives, when they were talking to you on the 14th, did they tell you, don't tell anybody about this? Don't talk to the media? Did they say anything like that?
I don't remember them saying, don't talk to me, because I don't think at that time, I don't remember the media being an issue. They just said, I remember them saying, don't talk to anyone from the defense side. They will try to approach you. I remember that part. Later on, it was when they said, you shouldn't talk to the media.
Sure.
But by that time, I'd already talked to me, and that's when I told them, well, no, I've already spoken to them.
Right. And we'll get to that in just a second. By the way, Kato, good point. And make sure you follow us during the week on social media and catch our short clips on YouTube, because the behind-the-scene footage that we put into them is excellent. Our editors are unbelievable. They do a great job. Let's go to the personal side a little bit here. You're a single mom at the time, right?
Correct.
5-year-old? Did you have a 5-year-old at the time?
Yeah.
So what was it like when you went to work the next day? Did you have to tell them?
I went to work, and I remember media showing up at my work, so I left. I remember leaving my work, never going back there again, never going to my home again, moved to a friend's beach house. It was just like you're being invaded. Yeah. And so my daughter, they would follow her. I was taking her to school. You know, it was constant harassment by the media. So everything changed from that point on.
Yeah. And Cato, it wasn't paparazzi. This is actual Channel 4, KTLA, Channel 7, Channel 2, national, hounding you,
CNN.
right?
Everybody wants a story. Everybody wants to be first with the story.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously then you were approached. I think Tom will get into that of being approached by, I think, hard copy.
Yeah. So that is the next part of the story. It's okay. Everybody's watching this, and if you don't know Jill's story and you hear this and it's fascinating, you're going, okay, how come we didn't see her during the trial? I mean, it's so obvious. So it all comes down to the fact that it was a feeding frenzy for the media. Let's face facts. Anybody that they could get to talk. I'm sure, Cato, you were being harassed constantly to, offered everything to try to talk. And it was hard copy. And they were very aggressive, as most of those type shows were back then and are now. So what happened? A producer called you?
They came to my door, and they were saying, hey, I think Jose Camacho, the knife guy, he sold it, and other witnesses. They were naming all these people, like a restaurant guy. This, they're all talking about their experience, and we cleared it with the DA's office, Mary Jo Fairbanks. And then I'm like, okay. So it was pushed, but we got to hurry, do it now. So I remember, okay, I didn't, and they rushed me. I remember feeling like, okay. So we went to this, I think, hard copy studio like the same day.
At Paramount?
At Paramount, yeah. I remember Linda Blueblood, I remember her name. And they said, hey, we want to get your story too. We want to do it for the show. I said, okay. And then they offered me money, and I turned it down. It was like $5,000, something like that. I said, no, I turned it down. Because after that, I did the taping. I remember calling Mary Jo Fairbanks and letting her know what happened, what I did. Mm-hmm. Then it became a big thing. Then Marcia was involved, and then I was called down to Marcia's office. So I admitted. I said, "Yeah, here's what I did. Here's what happened." And then she's like, "I'm going to make an example of you."
Right, because this happened after the grand jury convened.
Yes.
Because you testified in the grand jury.
It was after the grand jury.
And Cato, were you at the grand jury? Obviously, right?
I did the grand jury too.
Yeah. Did you see her, or was everybody in at separate times?
No, it had to be definitely separate times. Okay. But with you, so I'm going to make sure I get this straight. The hard copy offered, you didn't take the money, or you did take it eventually or not?
I didn't take any of it, yeah. Oh, no, I did. I took $2,500, gave it to an attorney I had to hire.
Okay.
To protect me from Marcia Clark.
Right.
Now, Tom, if you're an attorney and you hear this story, you're going to bring her up as a witness no matter what. No matter what, and to be made an example. I don't understand it. Yeah. I don't understand you being made an example of. And even if you took the $5,000, I mean, who cares? You're a single mom. It doesn't affect.
And I lost my job.
And it doesn't affect what you saw. Yeah. It doesn't affect the facts of you being very credible.
It doesn't affect her credibility whatsoever.
And that's what Tom Lang said, and Phil Van Natter both saying, and David Kahn, who really stood up for me, wanted me to testify. And I turned down all kinds of money after that. But Marcia, you want to hear about my meeting with Marcia?
Well, here, let me ask you one question, because I think people will wonder this. Do you have any idea when the grand jury met in relation to June 12th? How soon after that were you guys testifying in front of the grand jury?
That's a great question.
Was it weeks?
I
days?
Think so. I think it's weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, and I remember
July?
actually being, when I heard, like I said, I mentioned on shows, I've never been in a courtroom in my life. When you hear the word grand jury, you're thinking, wow, you're thinking of Parliament, you're thinking of you're thinking like, wow. It was just people like with fishing caps, and I was like, it's the grand jury? Yeah. And I don't remember how many were there, but...
I was nervous, yeah.
It's like if you've ever done a deposition, you're worrying, if I say one wrong word, am I going to hang myself? Right? That's what you're thinking, right? I'm being judged on every single thing I say.
You're in a grand jury, and you're like, oh my God.
It wasn't very grand.
Yeah. So
Jill, I'd heard you say that once before. You go in there, and Cato, you too, you walk in there and thinking you're going to see like barristers or something, some real official, but it was just everyday people in there, right?
It was, I guess, your peers or whatever else, but it was all the people that were picked. I don't know how they pick a grand jury. I don't know if it's just like getting a summons, a jury duty, but I don't know if they're on staff, but yeah. And I think it was sort of like an auditorium.
It was.
You're
yeah.
sitting at the front and you're talking to the group of people.
It was a huge room. I remember that, being intimidated. Like you, I'd never been in a situation like that. And it was just, they don't ask you questions. Only, I think, remember Marcia was the only one asking me questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember any of the questions? Did she ask you to just relay the events?
Timeline. She's putting my timeline and here where the cars were. Remember, she drew a diagram and I went and verified it and the timeline. And she said, this fits exactly what Mr. Simpson, where he was. So I can't remember her exact words, but I had to draw a diagram.
Yeah. Did you hear any like gasp from the grand jury? Like, oh.
I remember.
Because it's fascinating to me. It's fascinating that you are seeing the car coming back at that timeline.
But also, it's so upsetting to me that I blew maybe my opportunity to put OJ in prison or jail, So that's very upsetting to me.
Yeah. And I get that, right? And I know that was a burden that you carried for a very long time. And you talked to the Brown family about it.
And Goldman.
And the Goldman family. And they told you this is not you, right?
Yeah,
right, they did.
Did that help?
Oh, yeah. And I apologized to them. They said, no need to, But I felt like for whatever reason I was supposed to be there, I blew it. But then again, I feel like Marcia blew it too. Because Marcia told me I blew her case. But I took that on very heavily. Yeah. But I realized she blew her case.
And we'll talk about that because she's very volatile. She's an intense person. You saw that firsthand. We're going to recreate what happened to you when you met with her. But, Cato, did you ever have those types of feelings too?
About Marcia?
Yeah, or just that
I met with Marcia Clark many, many times, and I have no grudges, nothing against her. I know she talked ill of me, and I'm fine with that. And but I just think... Tom, you mentioned it's kind of was very showy. I thought it became more showy Hollywood with her as the trial went on. Mm-hmm. And we saw it with different hairdos. We saw it everything. And you become aware of that it is Hollywood and there's cameras in the courtroom. Yeah. But as far as that, if I saw her on the street, I'd say, hey, how you doing? Yeah. I don't know if she'd return the greeting, but I would talk.
I'll tell you what.
I'd be very cordial.
I'm going to do everything I can to get her in here.
Right.
I mean, I'm pretty persistent. So stand by, stay tuned. We're going to get everybody that's associated with this on the show. So the grand jury convenes, and then it's shortly after that you find out that you're not going to be able to testify in court because Marcia finds out about the hard copy payment. So you get summoned to come meet with Marcia Clark one-on-one at the DA's office.
Correct.
What happened? How nervous were you when you walked in for that meeting?
Well, first of all, I was nervous because Brian Carr came to pick me up. He says, Marcia wants to see you right away. And I'm like, okay. And I remember asking him, like, am I in trouble with the law? He goes, I can't tell you, but
Oh, wow. That's intense. He can't tell you because you thought you're confiding this guy, and all of a sudden, I can't tell you.
I know.
You're on a need-to-know basis, and you're going to find out.
So wear this blindfold?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Handcuff you. No. So I go there. And I remember meeting with her, and she just starts yelling at me and was one-on-one with her. I don't even remember anyone else being there, but she's just yelling at me, and I blew her case. She's going to make an example of me, and she is just yelling at me like, why? Yeah, and she said, Camacho sold his, you sold yours. I have enough circumstantial evidence. She just yelled at me, and I remember her finger in my face going, you blew my case.
Wow.
And I'm like, I was thinking, I blew her case. What are you talking about? And then I had a friend who works there, another deputy DA who was going to do the domestic violence, Scott Gordon. I reached out to him, and I think he stood up for me too. He's like, no, she's reputable. I know her. And then David Kahn called me after that encounter and said, unfortunately, he's not on the case anymore. But, he remembers talking to Van Adder Lang and said, vouch for me too. She doesn't even have a park ticket. So it was just a very intense encounter. And I remember when I left there, that's when I called. I looked in the phone book, found a good friend of mine in there. I hired him as an attorney because she called me back twice. I think it was that time and another time. She wanted to continue harassing me about it. And so I finally got an attorney involved, and he's like, you can't do that to her anymore. If you're going to charge her with something, charge her. But if she didn't do anything, leave her alone.
Cato, do you think she was looking for a scapegoat that early, just in case this didn't work out? She'd have somebody to pin it on.
Well, I mean, the fact that she said that she's going to use her as an example, it doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make any. If anything, it would be a way to say she did hard copy. She didn't use the money. She's a valuable witness. I just think the power of Marcia's words could have been completely different, and people in L.A. especially would understand you even getting $5,000. Nobody would have cared. Nobody would have cared.
Exactly.
And
Here's what people
you
would
tell
say.
your story of who you are, and it's like I think people are going to go, it's pretty endearing. I'd give her money too. But
People would have said, why didn't she get $50,000? $5,000? Are you kidding me?
Tom, exactly
in
right.
hindsight, that was nothing, you know?
Exactly.
So, and I turned down over $100,000 or more at that point. I was trying to redeem my credibility, and I wasn't working either.
Yeah, but you were already disqualified from testifying. She already decided she wasn't going to use you. You could have taken those other interviews and done the money, or taken the money, but you just decided, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be more of a distraction.
And also, I felt it was blood money. I just felt very negative about it because our older sister was killed by a boyfriend in August of that same year. So another domestic violence situation. So I just felt very adamant about it. I'm like, I felt so horrible about even taking it.
And you know what? Marcia didn't use as a witness. The defense right now is going, whew, we dodged a bullet.
Yeah, no,
that's what they're saying.
Those are smart guys.
Well, they had guys come to my door, offer me to go away on vacation. I remember $40,000 was an offer for me to come to my door and ask me, hey, do you want to go on vacation? We can get you out of this town for a while. You need a break. I'm like, who are you? You know, then I found out it was from the defense.
Sounds like a bad Columbo episode, really. I mean, somebody knocking on the door, offering you money to go on vacation.
Did they mention Publishers Clearinghouse?
No.
No, okay.
Jill, I mean, that just makes
Ed McMahon, no.
It makes it more surreal for you, right? I mean, it just never stops. Now you have, I'm presuming they're from the defense, or
I found out later on they were, and because I gave the guys their name. It was an some guy named Skip, an investigator who was sent them, and he was working for OJ.
Oh.
I don't remember his name.
Well, he had an attorney. He had an attorney named Skip Taft. I don't know if it's the same Skip, but Skip Taft was his right-hand man.
Did you get a word in with Marcia? Were you saying, excuse me, I'm here to help you, I can save this for you, or are you just taking it?
Well, I let her do her yelling at me, and she was just like foaming at the mouth. He was just losing it, and I'm like, okay. I said, look, I remember apologizing. I said, look, I am so sorry. I made a mistake, but I remember saying, but it doesn't take away from what I saw. I remember saying that doesn't change what I saw.
Yeah.
And she's like, and at that time she hadn't ruled me out, so I was thinking, okay, hopefully I can, redeem myself. At that point, I wasn't afraid to confront her and tell her anything at that point.
Intense.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because people that are so into this OJ saga, and there's tens and hundreds of millions of people, it's so fascinating. But God, sometimes it's easy to forget that these are real lives, right? The horrific crime scene and what happened there that night. And then it just becomes a spectacle. But your life was impacted. Your life was impacted.
Tom, Jill's talking about people coming to your door. I'll never forget that where I live now and where I lived before, there was this person that would send me under my door. Did you ever see the movie Seven?
Yeah.
Do you remember the writing that the Kevin Spacey character did in a book? The very little bit. He had pages of it.
I watched the movie one time.
Well,
I didn't want to see it
again. It's like an intense.
Yeah.
He had library full of notes that were done with really little lettering. Very scary. I'd find that under my door with the guy's theory, 20 pages of the guy's theory of everything that happened. And I go, this person knows where I live. This person, I still have those.
I know that guy. He gets it to me too.
Yeah.
Like real small print?
Yeah.
Really small print. But this is 20 pages of all everything, the blueprint of the house. It's just, it was everything. So,
do you remember the details of what he wrote? Did any of it make sense?
It was a theory of the murders, and I think it.
Charlie. Mentioning Charlie in that one.
No, I don't remember. I don't know if it was the. I think he still blamed OJ, or was in his. I'd almost have to look at it. It was too spooky to even look at that time, and you get chills. You're like, first of all, you're thinking this person might be insane. This person knows where I live, so.
And that's another thing. The police told me that we'll protect you. No one's going to know you're as a witness. And then the next minute, I swear, it was like boom, right at my door. There was everyone knew who I was and probably you were. So I don't know how that leaked out.
Does it still to this day, people recognize your name?
Yes. And I play it off. I was going to change my name for a while, but there's this, I feel bad for this other Jill Shively. She lives in Glendale, and they have on Google, this is where Jill Shively, OJ witness, lives. So she calls me and tells me, will you please change this? As I've tried.
Well, we know there's only one Cato in the world, so that probably didn't happen. No, nobody's getting confused there.
Yeah. I just tell them I live at Tom's place if it's any trouble. No trouble.
Yeah.
No trouble.
Was it done then? Did you become a spectator? Did you just follow the trial then and try to move on with your life?
I tried not to listen to what was happening because it was so upsetting to me. And I heard some stuff from other people. I wouldn't watch it during the day. I just couldn't. I couldn't watch it because I feel like, oh my God. I remember a few things people told me about. I think I watched your testimony. I think I watched Mark Furman's testimony. That was about it. But I couldn't. Mm-hmm. It was just too upsetting to me.
There's so many chapters to this story.
Yeah.
You really have to like concentrate on the timeline because the dramatic events at the beginning and at the end with the acquittal, but then all the stuff, it just is it's kind of overwhelming.
Again, I think people forget that that Jill was going to be a witness. I think now with the show, doing our show, I think people are going to go, how do they not use this person? And I told Tom, I've told everybody, I go, This is the person that you saw the car, you saw the license plate, you wrote it down,
right?
And it's that coming home, him shouting, and then the car coming back, the Bronco parked where it's parked off the curb. It just all makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's originally what Marcia was saying. My timeline fit into what happened. If I were someone who's going to make up something, I'd certainly either really lucky or unfortunately unlucky, but I could have said any time. But this is the time I saw him, and this is the time when it happened to me.
Yeah. Not only could you have been a witness, the perfect witness.
Yeah.
You think about it. You know, just being there at that moment.
Right.
And seeing it. Yeah. So did you, how quickly after it did you lose your job? And what did you do about picking up the pieces?
Oh, I lost it that day they followed me to work. They're like, we're not having this. Wow. So I lost it then. And then I think for 2 years, I kind of lived off savings or I wasn't working because everywhere I went, people were just harassing me. It became a racial issue. And I was like, in my family, we have every culture and race. And, you know, and I hated that part of it because it was not a racial issue. OJ's black. He's married to a white lady. How could it be, you know?
You grew up in Indiana. Did you ever think of bailing on L.A. and getting out of town and moving?
I did, but not back to Indiana, no.
Thought about it, maybe go to Vegas or Phoenix or something?
Yeah, either Vegas or up north, you know, Oregon, Washington.
Yeah.
But my daughter's in school here, so I was trying to maintain some kind of normal environment for her. Yeah. So we moved to my friends down in the beach house in Santa Monica.
It's nice.
Went to school down there, just kind of started over. And fortunately, she had a different last name, so they weren't really able to track her.
Yeah. You know, Cato, it's interesting because Marcia Clark had a boss, Gil Garcetti. I can't believe that she alone could make this decision to not use you, right? There's enough smart people in the room that would maybe veto her and say, hello.
Yeah, I wonder if she had to go into a room and convince them. I wonder if she had to talk to Gil Garcetti. I wonder if she had to talk to the other attorneys at the time before Darden that they said, listen, I can't, this is how we're going to not use her and we're going to make it stronger for us. She had to have a plan.
Well, I can tell you one thing happened. In a book, Joe Bosco book, someone said, Peter Bozanich, a deputy DA who did not want OJ charged, he went to Marcia Clark, said, your star witness is a piece of shit. She's a felon. And so they're like, what? And so he said, I checked her out. She's a felon. It's in a book. And she's like, he checked her out. She's a felon. I can't use her. That was one of the things.
That was said about you?
About me. He didn't want OJ charged. His wife, Pam, tried the Menendez case, lost it. He was a deputy DA too. He did not want OJ charged.
And you know what happens in these situations? These theories, rumors, lies take on a life of their own and people believe it.
Right.
Because the media will throw out a story and everybody runs with it and they think it's the truth. I mean, even now you still think people, or a lot of people think that this was a mob hit.
Right.
And there's so many other these crazy theories. But you know, that's dangerous. Is it too late to
yeah.
sue him? I mean, come on.
I did, and I can't go too much into
Okay.
that. But Marcia later on, when we confronted her about that, she goes, "Well, she blamed it on him. Well, I trusted him. I thought he meant he did a thorough background check, and she basically." Well, I put it. Basically, he blew it.
That's all it takes.
He put that in his book.
It's in his book, Joe
it's
Bosco's
public.
book.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, Tom, we talk about people start believing certain things because repetition, and then you're offered the hard copy. And hard copy at the time was the #1 show. It was the hard copy in the current affairs, and they probably had a, they both are, I'm sure, fighting for your story. But when you get on one of those shows, whatever they say becomes sort of like the Bible. It's
Mm-hmm.
true. This is true. This is not true. And they can make a person raise you up, and then they're just waiting for the time to pull the chair to make you fall. And they love it.
Yeah.
And they love it.
Yeah, it's sensationalized, and
Right.
they're very good at it. It's very dramatic, and they know they have that type of power, and that's what gets ratings.
Yeah.
So you can understand that. Kendall, here's my theory about Marcia Clark, and Jill, I'm interested to hear what you think too. I think everybody in that office knew how big this was, clearly. And it was a huge decision to decide who was actually going to prosecute the case. She got it. She earned it. There's something about her. I mean, we can't talk like she's incompetent, right? I mean, this was a very difficult job. She's clearly smart. Tom Lang was actually saying that last week, that, you know, he respects her as an attorney and as a prosecutor. My thought is, if I'm Marcia Clark and Garcetti's coming to me and saying, you've got this case, I'm telling him, then you stay out of it. It's my call. I can't have you being Monday morning quarterback looking over my shoulder. I have to make the decisions. That's why I think she went so aggressively at you. You blew my case.
Right.
What do you think? I mean, you've had interactions with her.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I just think that, first of all, we found out so much later. In hindsight, you look like, first of all, I never knew that the juries, they would do a test of who was if they like someone, if they like this, and she tested bad on every jury that she met. They didn't like her. I just think that strengthened her in her mind, like, I'm going to prove that I can do it. I can prove I'm going to do that. And she was really the alpha male throughout the trial. She was the alpha male, and it was her case, win or lose, and she was just balls out of what's going to happen.
Can you imagine looking across the aisle in the courtroom and seeing a row of all-stars, Hall of Famers as attorneys, and she's going up against that with moderately limited resources? I mean, you've got the city behind you and the county, but again, these guys, unlimited resources, and they could do whatever they want and turn on a dime. It's like they had like 8 NFL coaches over there, right? One's watching over the special teams, the defense, the secondary, the running backs.
Great way to look at it.
And over here, you have an offensive and defensive coordinator. They're trying to piece it together. So I do have some respect for her that it was a very difficult job, but she also kind of blew it in some regards. At least it's easy for us to say. She wrote a book, and she got a big advance for it, right? And Jill, do you know what she said about you in the book?
I read. She said she did not act in a fit of pique. She was referencing Jeff Toobin's book where he accuses her of acting in a fit of pique and dismissing me. But I'm not sure if that's what was in her book.
But she was also complimentary about you. And the book is called Without a Doubt, Marcia Clark's book. And she said that, quote, that Jill was like a real gem. She was dressed neatly and conservatively for the testimony. She was articulate. She was confident. In fact, Scott Gordon, one of my fellow DAs, knew her because their children went to the same school.
That's the one I would reference earlier. Yeah, he knew me and he vouched for me,
God, how could that not be enough? It's her colleague.
Yeah.
They know you personally.
Yeah.
It blows me away. Just blows me away.
Well, I think that felon thing was one big thing, and then she,
Yeah, but they can check that. That can be checked out.
and she said, Peter said he checked me out, meaning he screened me background. But they'd already done a background check on me before, remember? And they said it didn't even have a parking ticket. How did I become a felon from June 12th to July?
There's a difference between a DUI or running a red light and a felon.
Yeah.
And you can just throw that out there.
Wait a minute. You're not saying the other Jill shot? No. Okay.
Maybe. No.
And by the way, Tom, I mentioned something about, you said the name Skip. I just want to know, I know that there was a gentleman named Skip Taft that was OJ, one of the lawyers. I don't know if it was the same one. I just wanted to make sure I said that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
sure.
I don't know if Skip is alive still or not, but
Yeah, I don't know.
he was always a nice guy, but
All I remember is they said, "Oh, we're here from Skip." This is from Skip.
yeah.
Boy, you're juggling this chaos with the trial and your involvement, and you have this 5-year-old daughter. So you got to go from being a mom and trying to protect her. It's probably good she was younger. If she had been a teenager, that would have been very, very difficult.
Yeah.
How much
Definitely.
does she remember? Not, of course, details of the events or the the saga, but how her mom was affected during this whole time. Does she have any recollection of that?
She does, and she remembers I was trying to put her to bed, and there's this guy from have a camera looking in the window in her bedroom, trying to put her to sleep, and she remembers people following us, and that's about the gist of it. She remembers people following us. A lot.
Well, you know what you had said earlier that, and Tom brought up, you're driving your VW Bug. You're driving your Bug. You see someone coming in the white Bronco, and your first thought was Marcus Allen, I believe you said, right?
Correct.
Now, did Marcus Allen ever hear you say that? Did you ever get any feedback from that story?
All I remember is someone told me Marcus Allen wasn't happy that I brought his name up because I was implicating him.
Well, and also, like I said, I don't know the Marcus Allen, if the reason that he didn't testify, or if he at the time played for Kansas City. Yeah. So I don't know what the story was that he was never brought in.
Right, but keep in mind, Jill didn't say, I saw Marcus Allen leave a murder scene. You just said there was a white Bronco, and I thought it was Marcus Allen, right?
No, I'm saying,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, because I think that, if I remember reading, someone said that he was upset, or is that was your own personal experience that you heard that he was like pissed at you?
He was upset with me because I brought him into the mix.
Jeffrey Toobin, we all know Jeffrey Toobin, the writer for The New Yorker who had the book that was based on the Fox special.
Right.
He said that your testimony would have been problematic, but it doesn't mean it wasn't true. I mean, that sums it up pretty good.
Yeah.
Correct.
Speaking of that, I had done an interview a week or two ago for CNN, and when I'm doing the interview, I'm sitting, I do my bit. I'm talking to a camera. I don't see anybody else, just the host of the show. And it's funny because I heard from the Twitter people, or the X people now, that Jeffrey Toobin was the next guest right after me. And as soon as they cut off, the host says, so what do you think of Kato Kaelin? And I understand it was not complimentary from what I hear. And then someone wrote on my Twitter, said, of all the people to cast a stone, this is not the person. So I didn't, I don't say anything bad or good. Right. I just live my life. Yeah. But it's funny how it's a great expression, like who's going to cast a stone if you haven't done something. And
exactly.
I think we know what.
Cato, I think it's very big of you not to say the words Zoom call. Okay. Because you have class. Hey, I'm a factual person.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything other than that. His book was what OJ's Made in America was based on. Billy Magnuson played you.
Yeah.
What about the actress that played you? What'd you think of her?
Romy Rosemont. I thought she was a little dramatic because I didn't behave. There was a scene where I'm in Marcia Clark's office and I'm being very animated and dramatic. I was not. I was like very scared.
It's better TV, I guess, right?
And another thing is when they showed the Bronco, and I talked to the producer, Steve, about that, when they showed the Bronco coming almost to hit me, he has lights on. And I said, well, his lights are off. Why did you have it on? He goes, well, for a dramatic effect. Like, well, that was. I would have probably seen him if that was the point.
I mean,
There's
is
lots
one
of embellishing in that because of I wrote, Tom, if you know, they gave me the screeners from the New York Daily News. They said, Cato, we want you to write the first. By the way, this was good. This was like huge at the time. It was going to be #1 rated, and everybody was edge of their seat, like we can't wait for this to come out. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll write something for this. So I wrote something for the New York Daily News, and Tom. It went so well, they said, write the next one. And the next one, I got all 10 episodes. And then my second one made it to the USA Today. So I thought, okay, I can kind of be witty and acerbic and everything that I did. And it sort of changed my life at that time that said, he's not as stupid as everybody thinks Cato is. He's just not that dumb.
Cato, I got to tell you, the comments that we're getting on our last few episodes, how people have just found you so endearing, so real. I mean, they really appreciate it. I mean, I'm talking thousands and thousands of comments because they had two things to judge you on: the trial and then that show and a few other things along the way. But people make up their mind, at least they think they do early on, and they have no idea what a great guy you are.
Well, first of all, I appreciate it, but it's like I said, the repetition, you see something, you start believing it, even if it's untrue. So when the court of public opinion makes their judgment on you, it's tough to overturn it, but it's gone on with these years. It's gone better and better, and I think it's sort of, I'm from Wisconsin. I'm really believing the cream does rise, and I feel that way, that I've always stayed 100% true to who I am.
Midwest, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota.
That's right.
Romy Rosemont, kind of, it's a good she kind of looks, the part that she could play that. There's
Yeah.
some resemblances there, that's for sure. I cannot believe they recreate this thing, and his lights are on. I mean, it's so stupid.
I know, and I
It's
asked him about that. I'm
aggravating.
like, why? We had to make it more dramatic. I'm like, it would have been more dramatic if he didn't have his lights on.
You lived it. You were there. That's your life. You saw it on the screen on the TV show. How close was it, other than the headlights? How close?
I didn't like the guy that played you.
No, I meant the actual altercation with the vehicles.
It was pretty close. I think it was pretty accurate. I was stuck on the lights are on, but I think it was pretty accurate.
What you think of?
Yeah,
Billy Magnuson's a star, man.
Oh,
he's in James Bond movies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, he's gigantic. And you know what? I never met him, but I did see an interview he did, and he was so complimentary. I said, okay, I like this guy. And then I met a writer came out to meet me that was his best friend that did a piece on me, and it was fantastic of what they said. And I was like, okay, everything's cool, but yeah, Billy's he's in a ton of things now because he made the A-list, and No Time to Die with the Bond film made him like a mega star.
Oh, that's true.
And you know what? If there's a description for Jill, it would be the perfect witness that wasn't, and just to have that byline.
Oh, thank you. It's very kind of you.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I feel like crying because, in hindsight, all these things flash back, and I kept hoping he would be convicted. And I felt like I contributed to him not being convicted. And then he passes away. There's no room for apology, nothing, or...
Yeah, I think you're too hard on yourself, but that's easy for me to say.
Yeah.
Right, you lived it. I can't even imagine. So I'm hoping that you've been able to let some of that go. I really do.
I have. I'm getting better.
Yeah,
I'm getting
because you
better.
have such a great personality, and you're so warm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
You're fine, Jill. You got it.
But one of the things I wanted to tell you, you're talking about things once it's repeated too many times. I remember after that whole thing about being a felon, I went on a job interview, and this guy says, "Well, aren't you a felon?" I'm like, "No, I am not." So I was suing the guy, the book author at the time. I added to that as like a witness how it affected my life.
Good. And why you said that? What was the person that said this book?
Joe Bosco, the book, his
Is
book.
he still at working for the DA's office?
Peter Bazanich was the deputy DA who said that to Joe Bosco, the author. He's no longer with the DA's office. I think he retired.
Okay. Just want to make sure. Get that.
I'm going to try to phrase this question in the right way, based on 30 years and everything that's happened in your life, how it's changed, how you became a different person, how you had to deal with so much. Do you wish that never happened? Or is it just something that in life, circumstances occur, and that was a snapshot, and your life went a different direction? I mean, do you lay in bed at night saying, why did this happen to me?
I never looked at it that way. I was okay, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from it? Get beyond the emotion. How can I grow from it? For whatever reason, I was there, and I made a mistake, so I need to move on from there. I never wished that it didn't happen to me, but I wanted to change my name at one time.
Yeah. Cato, don't you think she has to stop saying I made a mistake? I don't think you made a mistake.
There's no mistake at all.
There was no mistake. I mean, this is new to you. I mean, it was new to everybody. They offered you $5,000. If you had known that would disqualify you from being able to testify, you would never have done it.
Exactly.
But you did not make a mistake. You made a decision that Marcia Clark didn't agree with, and maybe in hindsight, she made the mistake by not still using you because you could have been used in that trial.
And I think I would have been a good witness because I was putting it all on the line. I'm like, yes, here's what I did, but here's what I saw. It doesn't change even Van Adder and Lang both went to her and said that it doesn't change her testimony.
Exactly. And like I said, Phil Van Adder, the late Phil Van Adder, but Tom Lang, vouched and just said that you are so credible. And I think it speaks volumes. And that's what it's... And that's the important thing, too.
Phil is from Indiana, or his wife is from Indiana.
And Tom is from Milwaukee. So it's that connection. And Tom, real quick thing, so a little bit off track here, but tell me in your opinion, do you think the name Westward Ho is the worst name for a store?
It's funny, there's a hotel in Phoenix called Westward Ho, too.
Really?
But it's infamous now.
Right.
It's a strange name. Like when you make that decision of what you're going to name your business, I mean, I'm wondering what the backstory is.
Yeah.
Westward Ho.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a phrase. Hey, as settlers are moving west, westward ho. Maybe it means
Oh, it means-
assertiveness
Yes.
and.
Oh.
I think now it just means that's my new rap song.
Westward Ho.
You be a rapper. Maybe you should write a book. Did you write a book?
I have not. No.
Ever consider it?
People keep asking me about it all the time. I'm like, yeah, well, I would like to write something inspirational, not necessarily some, oh, here's what happened. So if I could put it in an inspirational way where it could help other people, I would do that. Because after this whole thing, I had a lot of health issues. I just had to grow. So if it could be something inspirational, yeah.
No, and I think there'd be so much value in that. I really do.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
I mean, look, everybody's dealing with something.
Right.
People are dealing with circumstances that are beyond their control, and maybe they blame themselves for things. I think you could be a really a great mentor.
And I also think that with the positive, I think you should tell people what to follow social media and to have people comment to let people know that you're, let them hear what Tom and I hear to say, you know what, you're fine. Things are okay.
Right.
So
That's good to know.
they can follow you on, where do they follow you? Are
You
on
want them to
Instagram?
follow you?
Facebook, yeah.
Do you want them? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm not as open as like you guys are. I was like, I just want to be private. And actually, you asked me last time I talked to you, does anyone at work know that I'm involved in this? No, not to this day. I don't think,
Well, I hate to say it,
So-
but I hope they do now because they're going to watch this podcast.
Yeah.
A few
And
more
it's
people
gonna,
are going
it's
to
gonna
find
be a
out.
positive. You'll probably get the better parking spot.
But Jill, it is an unbelievable story. You
Yeah.
do a great job telling it. Are we missing anything? This is the card that the detective wrote. The license. If I ask you right now, what was OJ Simpson's license plate on his white Bronco?
3CWZ788. I remember that. It's emblazoned in my brain.
Never going to forget that.
No. And I always remember numbers before names anyways. So it's really weird. Birth dates, numbers. I know yours is March 5th. Mine's March 25th.
March 9th.
Oh, March 9th. Okay.
Hey, by the way, this is only the second time you guys have been in the same room together,
Yeah,
which I
March-
find unbelievable too.
fine.
Yeah.
Everybody think this is one big fraternity, the people that were involved in the OJ saga, but no, not at all, right? I mean,
No.
literally your paths hadn't crossed since we had, had been with you about a year and a half ago.
Well, I always listened to Cato, and I liked he's always been very positive. You've never been a negative person, say anything negative about anybody. But Chris Darden lives near me. I have a communication with him. He's actually a really good guy.
Yeah. No,
We're going to probably get Chris.
sure.
on.
He's done a good job of moving. I think he's a judge.
He didn't get elected,
Yeah, he
unfortunately.
was-
Okay, so he's an attorney.
Yeah.
All right. I think we covered it all.
Yeah, I think so. I think we found the soundbite with the license plate.
Oh, we did?
I think it's great.
It's all good. Jill, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you both.
I know this is going to do huge numbers, and I just want to thank everybody watching. We have a great new audience, Cato, and we're going to bring these types of shows every single week. People are fascinated by the whole OJ saga. We're going to bring you the biggest names in it. We're not going to mess around. We're not going to do this for the sake of doing it. We're going to do it because we want to answer some questions and we want to get the perspective of the people that were there and how their lives have been affected. But we're also going to be handling stories on scandals and crime. This is a true crime podcast, and that's
Yeah.
what you're going to get every single week on 1 Degree of Scandalous.
And I thought I'd tease you, Tom. I got a phone call the other day, and we have an audience that's out there, and I think we should ask the audience of things who they'd want to see. But I had I'm from Milwaukee, and probably the biggest documentaries are on Jeffrey Dahmer. And right now, we have someone that was the first one to enter the house with the police, and that might be
I love it.
one
Thank you for
degree
telling me
of
that.
Scandalous.
Yes, no doubt. And then Tom Lang, we're going to have him back because he's investigated every major serial murder case in Southern California.
new book coming.
And he has a new book coming on that. And I'm telling you what, I got a little sneak peek because I picked up Tom and took him to the studio last week, and he was sharing a lot about it with me. You know what he told me that really stood out? And we're going to talk about this when we get him back on the show. How many female serial killers there are.
Never knew that.
He says evil is evil. He told me about one case where this woman was a truck driver. And if you think about it, that's the easiest way to get it because sex is usually involved, right? It's an easy way to lure a guy, a man, a trucker on the road for days and days and days at truck stops. Dozens of victims. Just unbelievable.
Wow.
We don't know,
I bet you,
what goes on out there. There's still serial killers out there, he said, too, by the way.
I bet you she was driving a Peterbilt.
I don't know, but Anyway, okay.
Well, so Tom has a new book. He deserves
He's
that.
finishing it. He's finishing it. So hopefully it'll be out
all
soon.
the good because I know he went through hell.
Yeah. And by the way, Cato, people are giving us great suggestions on who they want to see on this show.
I figured that.
Even great question suggestions they give me, and I write them down for future guests because I want to really answer everything we possibly can because it is so fascinating. We just can't deny it. So, Jill Shively, thank you so much for sharing your story and spending your time today. Cato, let's keep rocking it. Thank you.
My friend.
All right, so for Cato Kalin, I'm Tom Zenner. You are watching 1 Degree of Scandalous. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because you get this every single week. Listen to us wherever you get your audio podcasts, and we're going to keep bringing it to you, so I hope you keep coming back. Thanks for watching, everybody.